lies and buying time, killing people next in line. Lower class and social slime, they don't matter. Genocide, sick from water, sick from air. Making money, they don't care. Caesar shit, force of air. Fuck them back, it's only for they bomb. They shoot, they kill, they massacre, rape. They burn the kids. No one lives countries. Lie to your face, fight and die. 'Cause God forgives. Selling lies and buying time, killing people next in line. Lower class and social side, they don't matter. Genocide, sick from water, sick from air. Making money, they don't care. See the shit, force of air. Fuck them back, that's only fair. They bomb, they shoot, they kill, they massacre, rape. They burn the kids. No one leaves countries. Lie to your face, fight and die. 'Cause God forgives. Yeah. Coming back around again.
Welcome to Game On. I'm your host, Ron Stevens. This is Sunday, September 6th, 2015. And before I get going here, I just want to say, give a shout out to Shawley. I just heard the last few minutes of his show, and it sounded like I missed a really good show. But I don't get to listen to a lot of shows. I try, but I'm normally probably doing what Shawley's doing, and that's researching and trying to find something relevant to relate on this show. So what I did here, it made me smile, because we got to get to the target, the real target. You know, people are running around, you know, them Republicans suck, or the Democrats are communists, or, you know, up here the Liberals, Conservatives, NDP, Green Party, garbage. It's all the same thing. The state is above the politics, and the politics is there to protect the state, and we have to rearrange some things pretty quickly here. Anyways, last night on my show Canada Live on Revolution Radio, I was discussing a whole pile of stuff, and I was discussing legalism. Was one of the things I was discussing, and I think we're going to kind of go back there a little bit today. But I'm going to stick with the UN, because everything emanates from the UN, and that's the game. So just before I get started here, I want to where did I put that? Oh, God, did I lose that already? Okay, here it is here. I want to start with this. We have, domestic affairs and foreign affairs. Affairs means business. Okay, that's the meaning of affairs, is business. So what is the meaning of trilateral, as in the Trilateral Commission, which is set up by the same guys that set up the United Nations and everything else? And it is on your lands. The Trilateral Commission is on your land in America. I try to refrain from using the word United States, but it's on your land. So, you know, the trilateral meaning of trilateral is shared or involving three parties. It's a pyramid. Okay. And who are these three parties? Well, we have Washington, D.C., which is the military, and we have London City, which is the financial, and we have the Vatican, which is the social religious aspect of this. Okay, and the idea is to encapsulate the planet and have their way with you. And this is right on your own land. And these are the things that are dangerous, the Foreign Affairs and the Trilateral Commission. I mean, if you look at the Trilateral Commission and you look at how many Canadian politicians are involved in the Trilateral Commission, same as the Bilderberg Group. They bring the politicians in, and either these people are generally messed up mentally to start with, or through flattery in that, we've been watching your work in such and such a province or state, and we're really impressed with what you do, and we'd like to invite you to the Bilderberg Conference or the Trilateral Commission. Every country has its foreign affairs offices, and they're doing business which is detrimental to the people of the countries of which these foreign affairs offices work from. So it's tyranny, it's deception, it's deceit, it's fraud, and it has harmed, those that are still alive. It continues to harm, and all you have to do is look up some stats to see how many people, good people, over the years have had their lives taken by these people. So I'm going to run back here a little bit because this is relevant to me, because I was talking to these guys just recently over policing. And I don't know how it's exactly set up in the United States, but I do know up here we have acts. We have all kinds of acts, hundreds of thousands of these things. And each of these acts produce agencies and boards and commissions which are not, they're outside the reach of the government that created them. And they call that responsible government. Well, it's set up to protect the state, because the state says, well, we're not responsible. Well, wait a minute, you created this outfit. Well, we may have created it, but we're not responsible for it. So I had a long discussion with the Premier's office, which would be your state governor, if you're in America, and went through a bunch of this stuff. And they're telling me that they're not responsible for the police. Well, if you're the head of the province, the head of the government of the province, how is it you cannot be responsible for the police? Well, they're under this ministry, okay? And they're in charge. Well, when I talk to the ministry says, well, we went through a whole bunch of, run around in circles and this and that. I don't want to call them completely dishonest, but they give off that smell because they don't just, when you ask them a direct question, don't give you a direct answer. But eventually, if you can get through the gatekeepers, you can get to somebody that will speak with you. And so what I found out from the ministry was, in fact, while the police are under the ministry can't get at them, because the act was set up in such a fashion that it's arm's length. Okay, so the police police themselves. That's, I don't want to call it dangerous. Yeah, I do want to call it dangerous, damn dangerous. And so, if you look back in history, you had local policing. It was very, very minimal. It's when we still lived, for the most part, in law, or at law, if you will. And it was very basic. People they pretty much did what they wanted. They interacted with each other. They built their communities. And theft is against the law because it harms someone. Assault harms someone. Failing contractual obligation harms someone. And this is law, okay? And law is based. The basis of law is moral values. That's the basis of law. It's immoral to harm someone. That's the basis of law. And slowly we move to the legal system. The legal system, legal is amoral. That's when you talk to bureaucrats and that, or government officials, or police, or judges, or lawyers. It's, there is no, if you talk to these people, you know that it's not based on any moral concept, because while there's nothing we can do about it, whether it's moral or immoral or amoral, it really doesn't matter. It's just what it says. It's an act, something done, and there's no moral basis for what they do. And that's why we desperately need to get out of legal and back to law. It has to happen. But anyways, we've had this problem, this ongoing problem here with carding up here. And I know they do the same thing in the United States. They target certain groups of people. People who are not financially well off. They target those. They target, minority groups, i.e. blacks, Hispanics, whatever. They target them. Don't target Muslims, though. There's a reason for that. We won't get to that today, but you can look that up yourself. But they target certain groups of people. And it's always about safety. It's always about community safety. We're just trying to keep the community safe by marginalizing certain groups of people who are all supposed to be part of our society, who are supposed to have equal rights and so on and so forth in this so-called society. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. Anyways, there was an article in the paper a few days back about the fact that the province can't tell the police what to do about carding. They couldn't, what the story kind of went, they couldn't get the data because they don't have the legal capacity to request they can request the data from the police, but the police have no reason to give it to them if they don't feel like it, because the police are outside the grasp of the province. So it's getting a little tricky for the province, because now people are going, wait a minute, what do you mean you can't ask the police to furnish you with this data? How the hell's that working out? And so that's putting a little bit of light on that angle of it, because people are asking, how is it the province can't demand the data from the police? How is that? Well, simple, because the police are outside the reach of the government. And they do all of these things in order to protect the government or protect the state. Don't look at us, right? And sorry, but there's nothing we can do to help you out, even though we created this stuff. Anyways, the Ministry of Community Safety, see, you go safety there, and Correctional Services, and this is the ministry of which the police find themselves under here, at least in Ontario. You would have to look this up in your own neck of the woods. But I'm sure you will find the exact same setup, because everything's global. Anyways, the Ministry of Community Safety and Correctional Services did not request street checks data from the province's police forces, information that could demonstrate the efficacy of the controversial practice currently under review by the province. Despite launching a comprehensive review of street checks, the province did not request data from Ontario's police services that could demonstrate the effectiveness of this controversial practice. Now, that changed the story a little bit from the last story that came out. The last story was that they couldn't. Now they're changing the story that they didn't request. And there's no point requesting, because the police don't have to give it to them. But while some Ontario police forces say they would voluntarily provide information demonstrating how street checks reduce crime, others say it is logistically difficult to track every instance of the tool, leading to arrest, charges, and discovery of drugs or weapons and more. The lack of statistics. This is a problem. When you need statistics that matter, you can't get them. They don't exist. Take the United States. And I'm not talking about America now. I'm talking about the United States, the corporation. all of the people that are killed by police, there's no real records of it anywhere. There's no requirement for them to keep records of this stuff. Oh, how could that possibly be? When you have police running around knocking people's doors down the wrong house and shooting the house up and killing people that aren't even suspected of a crime, how is it possible that this data is not front and center? I've got data on watersheds, I got data on climate change, I've got data on every damn possible thing there is, but I can't get any data on what the police are up to. We'll get to the reason for that later. But anyways, at a public meeting in downtown Toronto earlier this week, the Minister of Community Safety and Correctional Services, Yasser Naqvi. Now, you see, that's not a Scottish name. That's not an English name. That's not an Irish name. These are the people that founded. It's not a Polish name. These are the people that founded this country, if you will, these lands. They didn't found it. It was founded by investors. But these are the people that came here originally to get out from under the thumb, they thought, of feudalism, which they didn't. But they thought they were. They give it a shot. But this is a name of a guy who's the head of this particular ministry that has, I think he is from Pakistan, if I'm not mistaken, originally is where he came from. And the Toronto Police Chief, Mark Saunders, who is Toronto's first black police chief, and even the black people in Toronto got it, okay? It's like, okay, America, or the United States, got a black president that came out of nowhere, from day one, it doesn't look like he's even, a born American. But then that doesn't matter because the United States has got nothing to do with America. The United States is simply one of the points of the trilateral situation, and so realistically, it's a corporation, and so does the head of a corporation need to be American born? No. Okay, so all this nonsense about him being president and being from Kenya or whatever else, it doesn't matter because it's got nothing to do with America. It's the United States. He's the president of the United States, with a corporation. And you can have the president of a corporation, doesn't matter if he's from Mars, right? It makes no difference. You don't have this. These governments are not your governments, okay, and they don't work for the people. If it was your government, it would be a whole different ballgame going on. They wouldn't have, they wouldn't have dropped the tariffs, which protect the labor of the people on the land. They would not have shipped all the jobs off your lands. No, these people have nothing to do whatsoever with the actual men and women on the land. Yasser said one of the challenges of the review has been that legally the province could not compel police services to hand over carding data. Part of their review now includes determining ways to require police to provide such information. Well, the only way you can do that is add something to the Police Act. Okay, and they're not going to do it. They could simply go to the legislature and say, well, this sucks. They're not giving us the data. We want the data. And just make a new statute or regulation and throw it in that act, which is a vessel. It's just a collection thing, and we can pass this instantly and get that data. But they're not going to do it because, you see, if they get the data, then the responsibility lands in the legislatures, in the government pocket, and they have to deal with it. They didn't set up the police services or the Police Act for the protection of the people. They set it up for protection of the province or the government or the state, if you will, to protect the state. But the ministry did not ask any police force to voluntarily provide data on street checks to help inform the current review. Jonathan Rose, Yasser's director of communications, said that the ministry did not need that information to know that changes must be made on how street checks are conducted in Ontario. Based on the countless negative personal experiences, the community's concerns over such arbitrary and random stops, and the publicity of available police statistics and reports, it wasn't necessary to request and wait for additional data to know that this was an issue that required the province's intervention, Rose said in an email. Well, this is the ministry people talking, but Chief Mark Saunders, who just happens to be black, and the biggest problem they have in Toronto is the carding of black youth. Now, even though he's black, he's all for carding, and that brings back, and please don't get angry with me when I say this, but I try to talk in real terms so that people understand things. I don't know who Mark Saunders is. I haven't met the man, but he is playing the role. There is no doubt that he was put in there to ease the tensions, but the black community got it right away, and they're looking at this guy as a house nigger, plain and simple. One of their own is promoting carding of his own people. That's a house nigger. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And just what it is. And I use that term sometimes because from where I sit, it's the easiest way to drive that reality into people's brains. And the idea is to get it in there and keep it in there so that people understand exactly what they're dealing with. Anyways, based on the countless negative personal experiences the community's concerns over such our focus was on taking action to ensure people's rights were protected, he said. Kathleen Wynne's Liberal government, now Kathleen Wynne, for those who don't live here, is the premier of the province, who is a, what do you call those people, a dyke, a carpet cleaner, whatever you call those people. She's a lesbian, and she's a crazy person, but that's who our premier is right now. But anyways, the Kathleen Wynne Liberal government announced in June that it would conduct a review of carding, which includes police stoppings, questioning and documenting people who are not suspected of a crime. The practice has been criticized as discriminatory, as racial profiling by another name. For years in Toronto, a series of Star investigations has shown carding disproportionately affects blacks and, to a lesser extent, brown men. Anger about the practice is shared in other cities across Ontario, with critics airing their concerns at recent public meetings in London, Ottawa, and Peel. Yasser has frequently said he is working to eradicate arbitrary random stops that do not have a clear policing purpose and which are done solely for the purpose of collecting personal information. Well, when he says he's working to eradicate arbitrary random stops, he doesn't have the power to do it. Even though he's the minister of which the police are under, he has no authority whatsoever to ask or force the police to do anything. He can say, I want you to stop carding. They can just, bite me. Okay? And it's set up that way on purpose. At Toronto's meeting, freelance journalist and carding critic Desmond Cole expressed exasperation at not knowing whether carding was worth the pain and frustration it causes of the many people who feel targeted and arbitrarily stopped by police. Referring to wording in the province's discussion document online, Cole said that the carding is a necessary and valuable tool. Sounds really nice. But where is the data? Where is the evidence that this is a necessary tool? He asked. The Star asked GTA police services if they would voluntarily provide carding data to the province. The forces in cities where the province held public meetings on street checks this summer, London, Brampton, Thunder Bay, and Ottawa, were also polled. Mark Pugash, spoken for the Toronto Police, would not directly answer when the force would hand over data to prove the efficiency of the practice, but said he has been told the Ontario Association of Police Chiefs will ensure the ministry has an understanding of the value of the practice. You're not going to get any data. We're going to have to give it to you. We're going to give you some, bit of fluff so that you understand the value. You, the province, you, the government, understand the value of the practice. Police services in Halton and Thunder Bay said they would provide information requested by the province, though Thunder Bay, where the public consultation was held last month, does not practice street checks. Now, isn't that amazing, eh? I wonder who else reads this crap and understands what they're reading. That's what kills me about all this stuff. Does anybody even understand what they're reading when they read these newspapers? My wife looked at some data and said that the average, no, you're here, just to make sure I do this right, dear. The average American attention span has reduced itself to 8 seconds. Okay? 8 seconds. The attention span of the average American is 8 seconds. Now, who the hell's going to read all this stuff? Most people read the headline. That's it. Or they'll read the first couple of paragraphs. But if you understand how they write things, the first 2 paragraphs are usually opposite to the information of the last few paragraphs, because that's where the real story ends up. But people don't get that far. So they slam all this garbage into these newspapers, and people just don't get it. They don't understand what they're reading. You know, I mean, what kind of a sentence or statement is this? Police services in Halton and Thunder Bay said they would provide information requested by the province, in other words, the carding data, but Thunder Bay agreed to provide the information, but Thunder Bay doesn't card. So Thunder Bay agreed to hand over the data, of which they don't have because they don't do carding in Thunder Bay. As far as any history, we always cooperate and provide input to any consultation when asked, says Chris Adams, an executive officer with the Thunder Bay Police Service. We are always willing to support the province's efforts as they will aid in enhancing framework surrounding this issue, said Sergeant Chantal Coroner, spokesman for Halton Regional Police, which has conducted street checks for decades. Ottawa Police responded to the Star's question, saying they provided the province with its first report on carding completed in July. While the report highlighted examples of street checks that led to arrests and charges, it did not calculate the percentage of stops that ultimately played a part in solving crime. Several of the police forces pulled by the Star pointed to the difficulties involved in tracking and gathering data to show the efficiency of the cards. Peel Regional Police said it would welcome an opportunity to share successful examples of street checks, but that it does not routinely track statistical data to link street checks to specific arrests. London, Ontario Police Chief John Pear said officers make use of a function in police records management system to record information about a person, vehicle, or location that may be of interest for law enforcement purposes and public safety. While the information is stored in our record management system, it is not organized or tracked in any such a manner that would simply translate into data. We have the data, but we don't have a clue how to organize the data so we can retrieve the relevant data. Well, why would that be? Well, you know why it is. The information to use by investigators on a case-by-case basis, he said, including homicide, sexual assaults, drugs, robberies, property offenses, and frauds. York Regional Police does not engage in carding, according to spokesman Constable Andy Petterton, but York officers do use a function of the force's records management system, Petterton said, to gather information intelligence by documenting interactions such as traffic stops where only warnings are issued, calls regarding suspicious people or vehicles, or noise complaints where no charges are laid. In those circumstances, the information is recorded but not tracked in a way that would allow police to link the information to arrest or charge, Penderson said. Now, in Ontario, if you live in Ontario, you break the law. Your bloody presence here means you're a lawbreaker. Not real law, legal law, similar to but not law. Which is, and the force of law, which are these guys, the police, who they enforce the laws, the legal rules and regulations of the corporation created by the government/corporation, and then put these police forces forward to go after people for the rules and regulations that they set out, even though they have no ability to get at the police. Again, there's a reason for that. But some statistics I looked up, data they like to call it, I don't know, maybe 4 years ago, said that, I think that was from 2002 or something, the data stated that over the course of a year in Ontario, there was 2.2 million infractions handed out by the police. In 1 year. And that means that with a population of about 14, 15 million people here in Ontario, that over the course of 7 years, every man, woman, and child broke the law. That ain't possible. Who's breaking the law? Well, it ain't you and it ain't me. Unless you've caused somebody some specific harm, you haven't broken any law. And like I keep saying, you know, the so-called justice system we have here, and some people like to refer to it as just us, it can't feed itself because they don't produce anything. So they need to get paid. And you, the legal man or woman, are liable through your identification. Your identification is liable, but you are the agent of it, so that makes you bound for any liabilities. And they just drag your butt into the courts or hand you out a bunch of tickets. And that is the ground up. You can almost look at that as Soylent Green, couldn't you? They drag you into the meat grinder so that these people who don't produce anything can make a living. So, you know, you can call them bloodsuckers, you can call them vampires, you can call them cockroaches, you can call them whatever you want. David Suzuki referred to them as maggots. And the bigger the maggot, the more power the maggot has, and the more it can consume. So, you know, call them vampires, call them maggots, call them whatever you want, but we've got to get them away from us somehow. Now, why would a government make these agencies that control so much of your life untouchable by the government who created them? Well, it's all about internationalization. So we got to go, everything emanates from the United Nations. But what you have is you have this trilateral, and it's called Trilateral Commission in the United States, but that's your triangle. So what they do is they sit there and they work stuff out, and then it ends up as United Nations policy. Okay, and then it comes back. So you have all of these people who are not in government although a lot of the trilateral people are, making international suggestions, if you will, which destroys the very people that live on the lands. It's really sad. But anyways, we have the UN police community, and let me see if I can get this here. We have the UNPOL, sustainable. It's always about sustainable. It's always about safety. Sustainable peace through justice and security. Just like the carding, right? We're not carding you because we're picking on you. We just saw you walking down the street and we thought we'd pull you over and ask you for all your identification and why you're walking down the street and what's going on in your mind at the time. Do you have any evil plans for the community or anything? We're just going to mark all that down. And it's got nothing to do with you. We apologize for pulling you over. Don't please take this as intimidation or anything. It's just that we are concerned for the general safety of the community. That's always about safety. So we have sustainable peace through justice and security, and this is the UNPOL. Now, I want to stuff this into the chat. And if you're just listening and not in the chat, well, all you have to do is Google ucy.tv, and you will end up here. Like if you're listening on from another entity that fires this out, come on into the chat. Very nice people, very nice people, informed people. But for those who are just listening, all you have to do is put in United Nations community police. If you Google community policing United Nations, the first thing that's going to come up is UN Police Community, the United Nations. Now, this UNPOL is the UN Police Community. The United Nations Police Division cooperates with many organizations to strengthen its expertise and expand its effectiveness. With some of these organizations, UN Police has official agreements to strengthen information sharing and lessons learned and to facilitate the implementation of peacekeeping mandates. With others, the links are informal but add to the work of the division. The police community continues to grow, and this group will be reflected in these pages. Now, the UN is about nothing but data. Okay, the United Nations is a huge global data collection institution. And they take that data and they use that data to further imprison you. Is what they do. On the one hand, they're telling you, oh, we've got the universal human rights, and, the United Nations was set up to stop conflict in the world, and we care about your health and your food and everything else. But when you look into the United Nations, you find out that it has nothing to do with safety. It has everything to do with your demise. The demise of your rights, the demise of your life, the manipulation of minds, and so on and so forth. So we have the UNPOL group here, UN Police Community. Now, we've all heard about community policing, and it's all about your safety again. It's about community safety. Links to the police community are varied, and lots of them. But what you have here is you have, let's see, the European Police College, Discover Policing, European Security and Defense Policy Operations, Europol, European Law Enforcement Organization, International Association of Police Chiefs of Police, International Association of Women Police, International Network to Promote the Rule of Law. That's an interesting link. Interpol, world's largest international police organization. National Association of Women Law Enforcement Executives. National Criminal Justice references. Policing Online Information System. Strategic Police Matters Unit. The Pearson Peacekeeping Center. Now, Pearson was a prime minister of Canada who came out of foreign affairs. Wore a bow tie all the time. Most people thought he was a closeted gay, but it doesn't matter. The Pearson Peacekeeping Center was established in 1994 at the request of the Government of Canada and was named in honor of Lester B. Pearson, former Prime Minister of Canada and recipient of the 1957 Nobel Peace Prize for his role in establishing the United Nations Emergency Force, the first modern international peace operation. The mission of the center is to make peace operations more effective through research, education, training, and capacity building. Then we have police cooperation, the European Union, the Stimson Center. Never heard of these guys before. The Stimson Center, a nonprofit institution, has worked to combine research and analysis with a commitment to fostering dialogue on improved, pragmatic, and nonpartisan policy. Stimson researches a variety of issues that focus on reducing the threat of weapons of mass destruction, building regional security, and strengthening institutions for international peace and security. United Nations Regional Crime and Justice Research Institute is mandated to assist intergovernmental, governmental, and non-governmental organizations in the field of crime prevention and justice administration. United Nations Office of Drugs and Crime is mandated to assist member states in their struggle against illicit drugs, crime, and terrorism. Well, I have a story somewhere on my blog, which is canadiantruths.wordpress.com. I forget just how old that is. It's not that old, a few years ago. And if you just put in the United Nations and cocaine, it turns out that a bunch of these UN bags were full of cocaine headed for the UN in New York. But the UN can't be prosecuted. And so they had to turn over the bags. So these people that, the drug runners, the real drug runners, are the ones that are telling you out there chasing the drug runners. Ta-da. United States Office, and last on the list here, Organized Crime Section, the UNODC section of the website of the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime Prevention, dedicated to organized crime. Now, they are dedicated, I love the way they write this up, dedicated to organized crime. Well, of course they're dedicated to organized crime because the United Nations was set up by organized criminals. A criminal organization is what the United Nations is. Period. If it wasn't a international crime syndicate, then the WHO wouldn't be doing what they're doing through the vaccines and everything else they throw at us through the World Health Organization. The FAO would ban GMOs and ban companies like Monsanto off the face of the earth. And so on and so forth. The crime of international bankers, both the international or the IMF and the World Bank, are integral parts of the United Nations. If there wasn't a criminal organization, outfits like UNESCO, which control the global education system, wouldn't exist. So, the United Nations is a global crime syndicate. And it's a triangle. And it has an eye on the top of it. And it's watching you. So, none of this stuff's spooky. It's just what it is. And, and we're just going to have to deal with it. Now, one thing, if you haven't looked at this, what I would like people to do really is, I love the International Association of Police Chiefs. Now, I'd like you to go and click on some of these outfits, because I think you will find the logos from some of these organizations. The logos are so telling. Like the logo for the International Police Chiefs is it's a wreath. It has a triangle. It has a cross in the middle of it, and a C. Okay, and if you look at this, we have a triangle, a C, and a cross, but the cross in the middle can be looked at as an I, because the cross part of the cross makes the A, and down the middle you have an I. So you have in that logo C-A-I. Okay, CIA, with a United Nations wreath around it, an international wreath around it. So, take it from there. But look at some of these logos. I mean, they're amazing things. They tell you exactly who they are, what they're up to. And so, let's see, International Network to Promote the Rule of Law. We have affiliate organizations, United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, the Folk Benedot Academy, I don't know who they are. You have the International Bar Association, International Association of Police Chiefs, International Association of Women Police, International Corrections and Prisons Association, International Association for Court Administration, International Security Sector Advisory Team at the Geneva Center for Democratic Control of Armed Forces, and World Association of Women Forensic Experts. And again, I'm going to throw this in too, because there's some awfully interesting information that people need to go and read. And reading, a lot of people don't like to read much. And that's unfortunate, because they write everything down. All you got to do is read it. They couldn't make it easier for us to understand what they're up to. They just couldn't make it easier. The International Bar Association, established in 1947, okay, that's United Nations time, is the world's leading organization of international legal practitioners, bar associations, and law societies. The IBA influences the development of international law reform and shapes the future of the legal profession throughout the world. It has a membership of 30,000 individual lawyers and more than 195 bar associations and law societies spanning all continents. It has considerable expertise in providing assistance to the global legal community. And it's all about global, International Association of Police Chiefs, International Association of Chiefs of Police, is the world's oldest and largest nonprofit membership organization of police executives, with over 20,000 members in over 89 different countries. The association's goals are to advance the science and art of police services, to develop and disseminate improved administrative, technical, operational practices, and promote their use in police work, to foster police cooperation and the exchange of information and experience among police administrators throughout the world, to bring about recruitment and training in the police profession of qualified persons, and to encourage adherence to all police officers to high professional standards in performance and conduct. For more information, click here. The International Association of Women Police. Okay, which is a 5-pointed star with the United Nations globe in the middle of it. The International Association of Women's Police is an organization dedicated to strengthening, uniting, and raising the profile of women in criminal justice internationally. It is committed to professional development, training, recognition, mentoring, and networking and peer support. If you ever wondered why you have women in the police force in the first place. All you got to do is go to the United Nations, because it's all about everybody's equal and human rights and that. And they encourage this. You know, you put a 120-pound woman out on the street. Eventually, you're asking for trouble. Eventually. Now, I know up in Quebec, where a lot of my family originated from, well, originated from over in Ireland and England and that, but once they landed in here, super good people up there. They're people of faith. They understand law as not to harm anyone and to help your neighbor when they need help. Very, very basic community, and very good people. You know, if you break down on the side of the road near them, they will guarantee you'll be having lunch or dinner with them, unless they can get you going right away. But they will go out of their way to help you out. That's what a real community is about. So, you know, they brought in a woman police officer up in there, and from Ottawa, and a lot of these young pup cops, I don't know what they teach them, but they get all jacked up out of shape. They're like Barney Fife running around with their ticket book. And this particular woman was irritating the hell out of everybody, and giving ticket. You got a tail light out. Well, fine, I'll go fix it. Well, no, I have to write you a ticket. No, you don't. And that's true. They don't, because the police have total and complete discretion. But you get these jacked up young cops, Barney Fifers, and no sense of morality, no sense of anything, just these amoral idiots running around with their ticket books. So, you know, they're pulling people over the most inane, stupid things that you would ever find and writing tickets for them. And people asked this particular police officer to please smarten up and back off, okay? If you see a license plate light out or something, hot damn, you know, pull us over, tell us, we'll go get it fixed. Okay, that's your job. Your job is supposed to be that of safety. Now, if you feel the taillight's out and it makes the vehicle not safe, then let us know, we'll go fix it. Stop writing these stupid tickets. Well, she wouldn't stop. And eventually she stopped somebody that was pissed off at the whole situation, and she probably weighed in 120, 30 pounds. And, you know, I'm a police officer. You do what you're told. And I guess they just looked at her and asked her to smarten up. And, you know, you have to do what I tell you to do. I'm the law. And they just stripped her down buck naked and handcuffed her to the steering wheel of her car and left. And she was gone. She was gone pretty damn quick. Got transferred out of there. So this is all about control from outside. Everything that's going on in your country is coming from the international side, the triangle side. They have control of the churches, they have control of the schools, they have control of the police, they have control of the governments, and we're sitting ducks, you know. And, you know, they want to disarm America. Ooh, don't go there, folks. Do not go there. And I say often, I am not into violence. I don't like violence, but I'm not a wuss. You know, but I believe that, you know, we need to keep talking to these people. We need to keep teaching these people. We actually have to go out of our way to get to them, you see. And I do that constantly with government and with police and councils and everything else. I just keep beating on them. And I don't beat them up. I don't yell at them. I don't scream at them. I don't call them treasonous dogs. I just, relay what they should already know, what they're involved in. And if they don't know, I'm going to explain it what you are involved in. And hopefully that sticks in your brain and it makes you think and ponder and take a closer look at what you're involved in. And to me, that's how we fix this. Now, having said that, could the standoff at the Bundy Ranch have been held or come to the conclusion it came to if the people were not heavily armed? Good question. I don't know. If you put 10,000 people up there and you have the feds trying to face you down with their armaments, could those 10,000 people have backed down the feds? I think they could have. Every man has somewhere in his every man and woman somewhere has some moral fibers someplace. You just got to get at it. Now, some have very little, i.e. the folks that run the Trilateral Commission and the UN and that. They're basically psychopaths and sociopaths. But the average guy dressed up as a cop or a Fed officer or whatever, they're in a different position. They have families for the most part, and they have mortgages, and they have expenses, and they are you who believe that they're doing a honorable job. But if you have 10,000 unarmed people who stand up and say, what you're doing is immoral, and so on and so forth, can you back them down? I believe you can. But having said that, far fewer than 10,000 people, heavily armed, refuse to back down. And somebody's going to move. And that's the art, I call it, of riding your moral high horse. The people that stood at the Bundy Ranch. Now, Vincent called in there one day, and he was out there, and he said he was, thinking about maybe he was going to need a Depends or something, just in case. But they backed him down. So while I say, we don't want to get into violence because that's what they feed off of. That's what they try to do. They try to destabilize, and put people in positions of feeling like they have no option but to pick up a gun and start shooting. That's what they want. And I keep saying that's what we ain't going to give them. We will not give them any more ammunition to use against us than they already have. So do not, and I'm just, this is stupid me even saying that to the American people, do not allow yourselves to be disarmed. You're it, folks. You're it. If you bow down, then it's going to get real ugly. You think the world's ugly now. If America falls, now as far as the Trilateral Commission, United Nations, and this is all on American soil for crying out loud. I would love to see the American people just walk over to the United Nations and walk in and shut the damn thing down. Just shut it down. It should not be on American soil. So we've lived through all this UN propaganda all these years while these people are, building the net around you, just like a spider's web, so you can't get out. Well, what we do need to do is not acknowledge them. And anybody that's shoving it at us, we need to, do something about it. Anyway, so... if you just punch in UNODC, you will find out a whole bunch of stuff about about how this community policing, how policing in general has been affected by, the internationalists. Now, I'm going to start going through a training manual here, and I'm going to put this in the chat as well. It's important that people read through this as well, because this is, like everything else that comes out of the United Nations, it's set on a template situation. And they always use the same basic template. And they use the same template to encourage and flatter people into doing their bidding. Now, this particular document, how's Iceland doing? I see in the chat room. Iceland, don't get too jacked up about Iceland, folks. Okay, there's a lot of people looking at Iceland because they arrested some bankers and this and that. Before you get too jacked up on Iceland, I think you need to go do some more research on that situation. I think you will find that while this particular news is coming out of Iceland, I think you will find that Iceland is tied up as tight as anybody else, and that they are also players. Okay. And before I get into this thing, I see another thing in here about Iceland, and then it's like Iceland is holding steady rumors of accepting refugees, though. Okay, now if Iceland is going to even consider accepting refugees, and these refugees were created by United Nations doctrine and actions, and they're players to destabilize the planet so that they could bring in their global governments in that, or the global government, then the Iceland, like I said, is far from being a non-player. We have to not accept, and I know this is difficult for people to accept, what we need to do is not accept the refugees. Okay, we need to shut this down. You see, as long as we accept these refugees, which are not refugees until their countries are destabilized, on purpose to create refugees, to send refugees to other countries to destabilize that situation, we are going to lose. We have to shut it down. Okay, the refugees from all times were created by policies that were put together to create refugees. So this is no different than World War I or World War II. This is World War III. Make no mistake about it. Look at the world. This is World War III. And we have to stop it. And we have to stop participating in it. And as my heart goes out for all of those people that have been dislodged from their countries and made into refugees through policies that had nothing to do with them, my heart goes out to you and your families. But we have to put the gates up, because if we don't put the gates up, then it's not going to get dealt with. This thing will just continue. So, if the refugees have nowhere to go, then the people who created the problem are going to be stuck dealing with the problem. And that will help to shine the light on the guilty parties. Okay? So always, problem, reaction, solution garbage, right? They create the problem, destabilize the country, turn the people into refugees. Reaction from the media, oh my God, look at all the poor refugees. We've got to do something. We've got to do something. Political side. Well, we're not really prepared to do it, but we're getting so much pressure. It seems to be the moral thing to do, and open the floodgates. So those who created the problem get the result they want in the end, because when you create a false crisis, you did so knowing what the outcome is. They win. And we have to stop that. Anyways, this document here, while it is directed at, it's the training manual on policing urban space. And this is the global training manual. And while it is directed at low-end, middle-income countries, it refers to the Western countries who went into this some 15, 20 years ago. And that is about the exact time I used to golf with a guy a lot, and it was so in your face, the change in policing and the change in their wardrobe, the change in their police didn't wear flak jackets, they weren't dressed in black. The cars didn't have push bumpers on them. And slowly over a few years, I said to him, they're militarizing the police. And he said, that's craziness. Well, if you've got eyes to see and you can't see, there you got a problem, my friend. It is the militarization of the police. And this is coming from the internationalists. So I'm going to read a bit of this. Now, as I go through this, just give me 5 minutes, if you will, to run through some of this stuff. And if somebody wants to call in and discuss something, please feel free to do so. The call number is 718-717-8296. And hopefully the phones are hooked up today and we can get you in here. But just give me a little bit of time to go through this. Now, if you're just listening, what you can do is just Google in UNODC, the training manual on policing urban space, and you will get this document. And I really encourage people to keep looking at these documents. I mean, this is a world worth of information, and they give it to you. You see, these guys, while they're criminals, they understand crime and they understand deception and they understand fraud. So they have an obligation to put all this information forward. They don't hide it, because if they did hide it, you could say that you didn't give us this information, right? And so they write it all down. So they say, well, I don't know what you're talking about. We disclosed all of this information to you, and that supposedly lets them off the hook of non-disclosure. But while they disclose it all, they don't disseminate this out through the media to tell you to go read it. You won't see this stuff in the media. Anyways, this is the Training Manual on Policing Urban Space, Criminal Justice Handbook Series, and United Nations, New York, 2013. And the United Nations All Rights Reserved, February 2013, the designations employed in the presentation of material in this publication do not imply the expression of any opinion whatsoever on the part of the Secretariat of the United Nations concerning the legal status of any country, territory, city, or area, or its authorities, or concerning the delimitation of its frontiers or boundaries. This publication has not been formally edited. Publishing Production, United Nations Office at Vienna. Okay, so acknowledgements, the training manual on policing urban space has been prepared for the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime by the International Center for Prevention of Crime, the ICPC, in good old Montreal, Canada. UNODC wishes to acknowledge the valuable suggestions and contributions of the following experts who have received the first draft of the training manual: Rogers, Belair, and yada, 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 a bunch of people here. The following UNODC staff also contributed to the development of the training manual, a bunch of names. We gratefully acknowledge the funding provided by the Department of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, Canada, for the development, printing, and dissemination of the training manual and its translation into Spanish. A lot of people trust Canada, eh? Damn, America's blowing everything up. Well, Canada's such a peaceful place. They care. Right. It's the you can relate this to the carrot and the stick. We're holding out the carrot, and the United States is beating people with the stick. Either way, you're going to do what we want. So Canada's role is the offering of the carrot. Anyways, there's some interesting stuff in here. Let's see. The training manual on policing urban space has been designed to assist police working in urban areas within low and middle income countries develop crime prevention and knowledge and skills. The manual focuses on the dynamics of urban space, particular to low middle income countries, and outlines the importance of prevention and multi-sector collaboration in advancing urban safety. Prevention as a topic as well as a strategy is integrated into the manual to ensure continuous reflections throughout the training. This also includes a prevention approach that is gender sensitive and grounded in international recognized human rights principles and instruments. The manual should be used alongside the introductory handbook on policing urban space prepared by UNODC and UN Habitat in 2011, which offers key information for trainers. The manual is a tool for training workshops, yada, 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 police services, police officers, first responders, urban communities. The introduction, divided in two parts, sets the stage for the trainer. It presents a concise outline of the traditional or professional model of policing and ongoing changes in policing practice, as well as the implementation of growing urban areas on policing and related challenges that police face in these environments. It also reviews international principles and guidelines on policing, the role of prevention in policing, and the United Nations guidelines for the prevention of crime. It's so nuts, eh? The criminals are writing this stuff to tell us and the police how to prevent crime when these things are written by the International Crime Syndicate. It's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I'm just going to try and buzz through. There's a couple interesting things in here. And I just took a quick overview on this, but it's the same thing. What I found in this as we go through it is that if you've ever looked up your forward statement, your vision statement, your community statement, that was every town, every city, every community's got one. The 20 to 2015, the 2015 to the 2030. We have one I ran into that goes all the way out to 2057 now. These vision statements. Now, all of the things that happen are done through consensus. Okay, and the idea of consensus is to get you to agree to something. And I've been to these meetings. I was to one on housing, which was bringing in the high density multi family type situations, but ever and ever high density. And I was at one on energy in Toronto, and I did speak to the all-party committee on energy, on renewable energy in Toronto, or no, in London, Ontario. And so I don't just I'm involved in this as well, as I've participated in these things, and it's always the same thing. You have a facilitator, and they always set it up the same. They set up rooms, normally round tables. They like the round tables. If you look through their documents, they're always having round tables, discussions and that. And the consensus situation is set up the same way. They have the facilitator who doesn't tell you what you're going to do. It puts you at tables with other people you may or may not know, and you're given sheets of paper or fill out forms or whatever because they want your input. Now, it's again problem, reaction, solution. So they already know what they have. The facilitator already knows what the outcome is going to be, but this is set up so that these idiots, these useful idiots, believe that they are somehow participating in something. Which gives consensus. It's really a very simple formula that is used over and over and over again because templates work. So farther down in this document, it actually talks about what the facilitators need to do to engage these people. Anyways, let's see here. We got a little bit of time. Policing cannot be isolated activity as it entails constant interaction with individual communities and various institutions. In many cases, collaboration with civil society is essential for preventing and reducing crime and violence. Community policing has gained popularity as policing strategy which focuses on decentralizing policing responses in order to enable local commanders and frontline officers to work in conjunction with neighborhood populations on developing and implementing policy or policing strategies. This module will review the concept, philosophy, and practices of community policing, some of the challenge, and how police services are working more closely with a diverse set of actors to meet a common goal of building safer cities. I'm not going to worry about that. Module C, policing strategies in urban spaces. There are countless underlying approaches to understanding crime, which in turn renders policing and the prevention-related work quite multifaceted. As a result, police services are increasingly working with diverse actors with a variety of expertise to apply broader strategies such as situational crime prevention through environmental design, and hotspot crime mapping techniques to minimize the risk of crime and violence. While hotspot crime mapping techniques, you can probably attach that to the carding problem. Sounds like it. The extensiveness of these strategies reflects the complex dynamics of urban spaces and increasing need for advanced techniques and collaboration to ensure effective policing and prevention plans. This module will explore these strategies, yada, yada, yada. Innovative communication technologies, as Module D, are fast developing and constantly changing the way societies communicate and interact. Social media, for example, has provided the tools for high-speed communication across large distances and instant accessibility to information and people. This has in part had an impact on the types of crimes occurring in urban spaces and their reach. Policing strategies are adapting to these changes and also integrating new technologies to collect and analyze data, enhance response rate, raise awareness, and prevent and reduce crime. This module will explore these technology strategies and tools and the important role of communication in prevention. So what they do now, this is 2013. So what they do, starts way long time ago, probably in the West, a minimum 20 years ago, probably longer, to gradually get to where they get you to. It's a forever evolving situation. So, whether these things are false flagged or not, where they create a problem, then they need a solution, and eventually they get to community policing. The professional model of policing, traditionally policing has been structured around an incident-based approach to crime control, which can involve a more reactive approach. The traditional model of policing usually entails conducting routine patrols of public space, responding rapidly to calls for service, dealing with the crime after it occurs, and conducting the necessary steps: arrest, follow-up, and investigation. The patrol is considered a foundational practice of the police and is one of the most time-consuming and resource-intensive tasks. There are various types of patrols, such as directed patrols, aggressive patrol, and foot patrol, to name a few. Investigation is another important traditional task of the police, which involves locating and interrogating witnesses and suspects, collecting and preserving evidence, writing reports related to yada, yada, yada. That's traditional policing. Well, that's no good anymore. So now we're going to get into the diversification of policing approaches. Policing continues to evolve in response to new knowledge, technology, demographic change, diversifying societal demands, and urbanization. For example, crime has become more complex and expensive to investigate due to increasing mobility and technological advances. At the same time, there's a growing interest in developing partnerships. It's all UN crap. It's all about partnerships between the police and diverse actors in society, where collaboration has become a necessity component of crime reduction in urban areas. As a result, professional policing models have expanded to include several approaches: community policing, problem-oriented policing, and intelligence-led policing. These approaches may sometimes incorporate traditional policing tactics and new information communications technology. Such an evolution in policing has been in part due to the promotion of partnership with the community, which requires police officers to participate, promote, and build trust with community stakeholders. This shift has transformed the degree of interaction between the police and the community and the types of attitudes, beliefs, and skills required from the officer. The shift towards these approaches is not necessarily a new or recent phenomenon for many police departments around the world, especially in high-income countries. Okay, so while this particular document is directed at low and middle income countries, okay, the shift toward these approaches is not necessarily new or recent phenomenon. For many police departments around the world, especially in high income countries like the West, where such changes were experienced in the last 15 to 20 years, while in middle and low income countries, the shift has been mostly in the last decade. To some extent, the evolution of policing suggests a growing recognition by police departments of the need to strengthen and diversify police professionalism, provide a framework to facilitate a more proactive, engaged, and targeted model of service delivery, place more emphasis on crime prevention to ensure a more sustainable form of community safety, build the importance of prevention-based community work and effective problem solving, adapt to changing environments, especially to the growth of urban areas and complex urban crimes. They talk a lot in this document about the problems in large urban centers. Well, we have these large urban centers because they systematically have been driving people off the rural lands into the large urban centers. And then once they have created these large urban centers where a lot of factories were, where a lot of people had stable livelihoods, where, same as Canada or America, we were the melting pot, but we were the melting pot for similar people from similar societies. Okay, so, while we had Italians and Polish and Irish and Scottish and English and German and, whatever, it was basically still Europeans who created our communities. And those communities were created under the idea of biblical law, if you will. Law. And so they got along pretty well. So now we've driven people out of the country into the cities. We've removed their manufacturing capacity, which removed a ton of jobs, good paying jobs. And then we start to bring in what they call multiculturalism, which is completely foreign to the society that built the actual, if you want to call it a country. And as they cram these people into these high-density urban centers, conflicts start to arise because whereas the original idea of the West, America, Canada, was that we were a melting pot, but people assimilated. Okay, now they don't assimilate anymore. They do not assimilate. And this, and it's in this document that it could create problems. Well, of course it's going to cause problems. You knew it when you did it to us. Okay, problem, reaction, solution. Now, because I would like people to go through this particular document, is because it gives you exactly how the consensus thing works. Okay, because it's a training manual. So this manual reviews the diversification of policing approaches with the objective of strengthening police professionalism for police departments in middle and low income countries. It provides up-to-date tools, yada, yada, yada. So we have note to the trainer, and then activity, what the trainer could indulge in. And this I like, B, policing urban spaces, implications of growing urban areas on policing and related challenges. Urban areas in most countries around the world present some particular challenges for policing. For instance, high population density can bring about several situations such as mass demonstrations or protests that can stimulate violence and chaos in public areas. These situations can pose serious problems for the police, where crowds can grow beyond the number of available police officers and become unmanageable and unpredictable. In addition, as a center of political activity, the city houses government departments, federal, national, state, provincial, and municipal local leaders. It also hosts political conventions, which can invite the risk of political violence and require protection for high-level officials. The situation enhances the responsibility of the police and demands increased resources. Cities tend to host major events such as concerts, sports events, conferences, and official meetings, which attract tourists and foreigners and lead to large concentrations of people in public or private spaces. At the same time, police departments and jurisdictions of any size can suddenly be called upon to respond to a natural disaster or acts of terrorism. In this sense, the police need to work cooperatively with other local agencies to develop a large enough police presence or capacity to meet the demands and to coordinate the mobility of the crowds or high-level individuals. While if you look at the G20 meetings and the G8 meetings, but in particular G20 meetings, down in the United States and up here in Toronto and Canada, and you see the response of the police, with their sound cannons and their kettling and all of this kind of thing. This is international, okay? This is coming out of the international camp, the United Nations, trilateral commissions, and foreign relations and all that kind of stuff. So none of this stuff is by accident, okay? They know exactly what they're up to. And we need to know exactly what they're up to. Policing challenges in cities is order maintained by informal local structures, conflict over resources, illegal provision of basic urban services, informationalization of city spaces and services, high levels of absolute deprivation, high levels of tension between wealthy and poor. Police are targets of terrorism and political violence. So now they're teaching the police that they are a target, which gets them, I guess, into a position of we need more gear because we're paranoid because we've been through these training sessions and we're in a high-density, multicultural place where apparently terrorists and normal people alike are going to raise hell when we have a political event or whatever in this particular city. As a hub of economic activity which centralizes financial commercial institutions, robbery and theft are common problems, and the city invites the opportunity for commercialization of illegal or stolen goods such as firearms and merchandise. In response, private security has become a popular service for banks, corporations, government agencies, universities, and private residences. The privatization of space can make policing particularly difficult, especially in gaining access to certain parts of the city which are occupied by private security. Urban areas also provide diverse and more efficient modes of transportation, access points, i.e. ports, airports, highways, railway stations, that can also play a role in advancing the delivery and mobility of illegal goods and trafficking in persons. These activities can be associated with organized criminal activity, which can complicate policing if it demands a cross-jurisdictional and transnational involvement and investigation. Transportation has also facilitated the growing presence of diverse populations in cities, placing even greater pressure on understanding and meeting various demands. For the police, this may increase pressure to mobilize resources in transit zones, which may extend beyond their jurisdiction and mandate and reduce services in other areas. Urban inequality is another challenge for the police, where the diversity of wealth in cities can test police officers' alliance to their codes of conduct and principles. In this sense, the police must perform its function in a non-discriminatory manner with integrity and respect for human rights, regardless of the socioeconomic characteristics of a neighborhood and its residents. This may be affected by the reality that poverty and inequalities can contribute to the risk factors for engagement in criminal activity. Examples: violent youth gangs and organized criminal groups. This in turn can lead to the creation of stereotypes about certain populations and areas in a city and influence the type of policing conducted. This is often the case in areas where immigrants, refugees, minorities, and rural migrants who tend to be marginalized, vulnerable, and live in poverty have taken up residence. Disparities can also enhance the exposure to risk of certain groups, especially women and youth, who are vulnerable to being trafficked for labor or sexual exploitation. Moreover, growing numbers of street youth in cities pose the problem of dealing with homelessness, underage individuals, and the growth of street gangs. This stuff is all constructed. I mean, these guys, why do we have homelessness? Why do we have poverty? Why do we have problems with multiculturalism? And I'm not talking about the individuals. I mean, the individuals that were sent here, most of them were put probably in situations not unlike the refugees, who never give any thought of leaving their own countries until all hell broke loose. And then, oh, we welcome you. Well, I got to get out of where I am because I'm in a UN camp. I got to get out of here. And so these countries are encouraged to open their arms. It's all constructed. It's all a written play. It is a written script that's being played out. And unfortunately, people don't read the scripts. So they think this is just happening in a natural situation. There's nothing could be farther from the truth. Anyways, it goes on here. In megacities, governance and policing can be difficult in terms of two main issues: lack of up-to-date information on the urban structure and the capacity to respond to a high number of diverse problems. The capacity of the police to work in urban spaces are directly related to the capacity to respond to and deal with a high number of simultaneous incidents and calls for assistance. This can drain resources and defer proactive policing strategies. In terms of urban structures, megacities are experiencing the development and expansion of informal settlements, i.e. slums. Part of the challenge of policing these areas is that households, commercial infrastructure, and streets are usually not recorded in the city's census or register. Well, that has more to do with these poorer countries. But what they're conducting or what they're constructing here is urban slums right here in North America. Okay? It's exactly what they're producing. In order that you have more and more crime, you have more and more chaos, you have more and more people packed into tighter and tighter areas, and which creates stress, which creates violence, which creates theft. So they create all of this problem, and they're locking you down, folks. You won't be able to escape the cities. I don't know any of the movie titles because I don't watch many movies, but I do know they made movies about New York, and that which was basically a lockdown situation. Now, if you go watch Soylent Green, that is based on New York City. There's all kinds of movies about New York City. If you watch Survival of Planet Spaceship Earth, Survival of Spaceship Earth, you will hear in that particular movie, which is just a piece of UN propaganda from Rockefeller and the boys, that they also bring up New York City. And the United Nations is in New York City, and if I'm not mistaken, I don't even know if Rockefeller's the head of New York now or not, but there was, I believe, a Rockefeller somewhere down the line that was the mayor of New York City. This is all being scripted out. None of it's happening by just coincidence. So the United Nations Principles and Guidelines on Policing and its application to urban areas. Police services have a vital role in the protection of the right to life, liberty, and safety of the person. This role is guaranteed in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and reaffirmed in the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. The international community has adopted principles, guidelines, and frameworks with the aim of ensuring that the rights are being respected and that law enforcement officials, including the police, are following their responsibilities as dictated by the rule of law. Not dictated by law, but by the rule of law. The rule are rules and regulations created by the legislatures for a corporate entity given the force of law. Similar like to law, but not law, enforced by the police. Some principles and guidelines worth exploring for urban policing: minimum use of force, impartiality, and objectivity, regardless of provocation. They need to work on that one, don't they, folks? A mentally challenged young man in his 20s holding a butter knife and seemingly somewhat confused, and maybe his meds ain't working, is confronted by 4,000 police officers loaded for bear who felt threatened because this basically incapacitated young man with a butter knife, the entire police force of the planet felt threatened and blew his ass away. So we do need to work on this impartiality and objectivity regardless of provocation. Unity of effort and command with multidimensional cooperation across different components to work toward a common goal. Legitimacy, policing in accordance with international human rights instruments regarding law enforcement officials. Ability to police in diverse society. Let's see. And now, if you look at the international police, you will find that an awful lot of the police who have retired are working overseas, being trained in international policing. And it's not just the retired police. We have police from here, and I'm sure in America, just like they do with every other sector of society, be it education or health or food. They always take people and put them overseas and indoctrinate them into the UN way of doing things. And then they send them home. And then they become the facilitators for the globalists. As a means of protecting and promoting human rights, code of conduct of law enforcement officials is a useful tool for educating and training the police about their role and responsibilities regarding rights. It can also be directly applied to police services working in urban areas. So this is a fairly long document, and people really need to go through this stuff and send it around other people and have them read it and talk about it amongst yourselves and understand what's written down here and what it actually means. The United Nations and all of their writers and people who write for them have this innate ability to write these long, basically ambiguous documents, not unlike the way the newspapers are written now. And you need to go through this and pick out stuff that catches your attention or perks your interest, and then delve into that a little bit deeper. Because it's all about educating yourself and your friends and your neighbors. Okay, the role of prevention and policing in the United Nations guidelines for prevention of crime, individual and collective safety, and property-based security are widely viewed as basic human rights and essential elements for well-being and quality of life. Crime prevention plays a key role and is increasingly integrated into national governments' safety strategies and plans. The international community, including UNODC, is leading the way by mainstreaming prevention within the instrumental framework and throughout all its activities. Now, if you ever wondered about crime prevention, and that's all in line of safety, how do you prevent a crime? How do you prevent a crime? I guess through intimidation. And you see, I could be here in town. I'm not going to do it, but I could walk over to my neighbor's house and pop him in the head if I want. Now, we have more police around here than we shake a stick at. Did they prevent that crime? Absolutely not. This whole idea of crime prevention is kind of a misnomer or lost leader, that the police can actually prevent crime. They can't do that. Okay? There could be 30 police on this street right now. And they're doing community policing. Maybe they're going door to door explaining who they are. They're part of the community police force and they care and they're here for your safety and yaddy frickin' yaddy yaddy yeah. And they're here for a half an hour and they leave and they go to the next street, at which point I can walk over to my neighbor's house and pop them in the head. And they didn't prevent a crime. Even though they were here, they didn't prevent a crime. So this idea of crime prevention is just some psychological bunk used for them and against you. But by using this idea of crime prevention based on safety again, the governments can keep coming out with these crazy statutes of which the police. And one of the ones that really makes me nuts is this distracted driving nonsense, which I think is a $1,000 fine here now. So, yes, Your Honor, I was driving down the road and I observed the accused here of distracted driving. Could you describe the distracted driving? Well, yes, the accused here, eyewitness, did not keep their eyes front and center on the road. They were looking to and fro, and I was very concerned for not only their safety, Your Honor, but the safety of the general public, and that's why I pulled the person over. And after discussion with the person, it was more than obvious that they were distracted, and that's why I pulled them over. Do you have anything to say, Mr. Accused, Mrs. Accused? Well, Your Honor, I wasn't distracted. You know, I was driving down the road and I was going across a bridge and I seen some people in a boat and it was a nice sunny day and they had a fish on and it looked like a very pleasant experience. So I just glanced over and looked at it a moment. Oh, so you do agree you were distracted? No, I wasn't distracted. I've been doing this long before your stupid distracted law came in. Well, I'm sorry. According to the new rules, you were distracted. Please deposit $1,000 with the bailiff or the clerk and have yourself a nice day. And it's 3 demerit points. And if you come back again, well, pretty soon you're going to be walking. And, you know, Mr. Rockefeller and the boys at the UN and Trilateral Commission and the Foreign Relations do not want anybody to have access to private vehicles because, well, it ain't safe. So that's one of the reasons we bring in these ridiculous rules, which are not law. This man or woman looking at someone in a boat catching a fish harmed no one. The other one that the one when I'll get back to this in a minute or not. You can read it yourself. But one of the things that was brought up when I was talking to a lawyer from the Attorney General's office. And when we went through this legal and law thing, and that one has nothing to do with the other, and one is the opposite of the other, you know, yin and yang, if you will. One is corporate and one is law. And one is corporate rules and regulations given the force of law, and one is just law. And so it took us no time to get through the meaning of law, and it was very simple, and it was quickly accepted by the lawyer at the Attorney General's office that law, in fact, is very, very simple. If no one was harmed, then there was no victim, and there cannot have been a crime. Pretty damn simple. Live your life. Don't hurt anybody. And if you do hurt someone, have the moral capacity to stand up and do your job, which is to, you know, fix the wrong, you know. That's it. So then we got talking about legal and how legal actually is against the law because every thing that was ever passed through the legislature, because that's what the legislature is for, to create law, legal law. But, you know, if law is no harm, no crime, no victim, and legal is everything they create there in the legal realm, creates harm, creates victims, and therefore is against the law. And we have thousands of these things. You know, how else could 2.2 million Ontario get a ticket in 1 year? How is that even possible? If, you know, that means everybody's a lawbreaker. Which is impossible. So, you know, I said, can you name me one piece of legislation, statute, whatever you want to call it, that was passed through the legislature that did not in fact cause harm and create victims? And the one he came up with, he did come up with one. I remember this now. I used to say he had a long pause and couldn't come up with one. I was wrong. He actually did come up with one. And that was that he came up with the drinking driving laws. And I said, well, okay, but it still harms people. The problem with the drinking and driving laws is like so many other things. And it's about safety again. And I am dead set against drunk drivers. Make no mistake about that. Okay? It's that can do some nasty harm and ruin lives on all sides. So don't do that. But the fact of the matter is, the way they set it up is it's basically entrapment, because if you're a drinker, a regular drinker, it's like anything else. It's like any other drug. You build up a resistance to it. So they make these rules that if you have 0.0 whatever it is now, and your blood alcohol content is higher than that, then you are arbitrarily impaired, which is not the case. if you have someone who is not a drinker and goes to a wedding or whatever and has a couple of glasses of wine, that person could be completely impaired, whereas the drinker might be able to party for some period of time and drink and consume a fair amount of alcohol and still be in very competent situation of their faculties and their motor skills. So, I mean, it's not, impairment is not, it cannot be based on this 0.0 whatever. It's not a true action of impairment. It's arbitrary. And so, you know, except for that one, possibly. But this is about crime prevention again, right? Now, again, while I don't agree with drinking and driving, and I was guilty of it at one point in my life when I was young, didn't hurt anybody, thank God. But I do know lots of people that were harmed, and I've lost friends that were involved in drinking and driving. So while I'm not a fan of it, again, it's the what they're using to supposedly prevent it is faulty as hell, and it's about control. So, the city is an environment that is constantly changing and presenting new demands, and so policing approaches require ongoing assessment and adaptation. In some cases, policing strategies have been modified to be on par with innovations in information technology, such as developing new information gathering techniques or multi-sector collaborations for community policing. Yet, this has not been easy, since innovation in police departments in low-middle income countries can be affected by legacies of authoritarianism, mistrust of the police, limited resources, and traditional repressive strategies. The training modules present relevant examples of how police services are addressing these issues. Now, this part, I'm only maybe a third of the way down this page here, and I want to just, we're running out of time here. I just want to pass this along to you, and that is that please take this page, and it's the UNODC.org. You can find this particular thing. This manual, training manual is what it is. But what this training manual, once you get down to part 2, training modules, community policing for urban crimes, they have these aims and objectives. And as you go down through this, you will find they have examples. Okay, they have examples from different countries. And this is exactly the same template they use for water resources, for electricity resources, when they're pushing renewable energy, for schooling, for they always do this from the UN. And this is basically coming out, to try, Rockefeller, for crying out loud. These guys, these agencies know exactly what they're up to. They've set up these wonderful little templates. And regardless of what they're pushing, they just take the information from your community sustainable development vision statement, which is set up identical to this. And so when you want to do policing, you use the same lingo, same everything, and you just plug in policing instead of, your local community thing. Same thing. So they have case studies. They have case studies why you need renewable energy, why you need to teach your kids in school sex education at a ridiculously young age, and so on and so forth. Why you need to take vaccines. All this stuff is set up at exactly. So if you want to really get the gist of how this is being played out on you and your community and your country, and the peoples of your land, all you have to do is take vaccines and put some words to it. The need for vaccinations, United Nations or WHO. The need for sex education in schools, United Nations, UNESCO. The reason we need modified foods. Now, parts of the FAO are United Nations are saying, oh, we don't want that. That's playing the good cop kind of thing. But here we have case studies, community policing approaches. This one's from Northern Ireland. The police can play an important role in promoting communities to be actively involved in crime prevention activities and develop a sense of shared responsibility for enhancing public safety. One example is the Police Service for Northern Ireland Neighborhood Watch initiative, which aims to build closer link between neighbors, the police, and other actors in society. Example, local government, Department of Justice, housing authority, social services, community groups, local schools, and to promote the role of the community as an equal actor influencing and ranking safety-related decisions. The Neighborhood Watch involves a coordinator for the neighborhood who mobilizes community members to work with the police and its community safety unit, as well as established members of community safety partnerships and district policing partnerships. This group assesses the crime situation in her neighborhood, makes decisions, presents a strategy plan, and takes action to reduce and prevent crime and violence. This provides a series of materials and tools for setting up Neighborhood Watch, more information, yada, yada, yada. And so as we go through this, there's social stuff on policing out of Brazil. And they use this where they took it when they were coming at us for the need for renewable energy and this and that. The original documents were aimed at, again, the poorer countries and our responsibility to those poor countries and our responsibility to implement these things for the safety of these poor countries and our safety in general. So it's always the same format. It is always the same. It's a plug and play template is all it is. So we have Introductory Handbook on Policing Urban Space, New York, 2011. I haven't looked at that yet. But page 28, and this is rather funny because it says regarding Kenya. I think it says something about some black guy jumped out of Kenya and went on over the United States and became the president. It doesn't, but just the fact that Kenya's mentioned there, I find rather funny. So they tell you exactly, activity optional, time required, 15 minutes for activity introduction and small group discussion, building your own case study. This activity is targeted for police departments that have implemented a community policing approach, or a specialized community policing unit in urban areas. The trainer should ask the participants to break into small groups and discuss the following questions. So the trainer, if you will, is the facilitator, and they break up into small groups, and the facilitator gives these people some questions, like explaining your department's community policing approach, urban-based, why was this approach implemented, which urban-based community partners and public and private sector agencies do you work with, how does it integrate crime prevention, what works well, what does not work well, i.e. the challenges. Does your department make changes? Shit, I'm out of time. That went too fast for me because I didn't get it all done. Anyways, I want to thank everybody for listening. This is Game On. I'm the host, Ron Stevens, September the 6th. And so there you have community policing today. And I'll be back on Tuesday at 7 o'clock. Standard Time. And for all the listeners, all those in the chat that get in the chat room today, a big thank you. Everybody stay safe, keep breathing, keep learning, keep shining the damn light on these guys. And we are out of here.